Here's Kevin Chibbles with that.
The September 15th, 2020 meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission. If we could do roll call, Courtney?
Yeah. Misty Soldwich.
Here.
Joe Butler.
Here.
Al Ferris.
Here.
Becky Needles.
Here.
Bob Ormsby.
Here.
Jeremy Preble. Sarah Ritchie.
Here.
Oh, okay. Josh Rabe. And Aaron Freeberg.
Okay, so next is approval of tonight's agenda. We have a motion.
Make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Second.
So I guess I'd say all in favor, right?
Yeah.
All in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Aye.
Next is approval of the minutes from the August 11th meeting.
I motion to approve the minutes from the August 11th meeting. This is Becky.
Do we have a second?
Second, Sarah Ritchie.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, next is if there's any public comments that are not related to items on the agenda. Does anyone here have a comment or anyone on the Zoom link? All right, so next is old business. Item A is consider recommendation on request for approval of final plat for Busamus Estates located at 1409 West 6th Avenue. Charlie?
Yeah, you'll recall at the last meeting, the commission had tabled this item and referred it back to staff and the applicant for further review. We worked through the applicant on this one and they have decided that they no longer want to go through with the subdivision plat and just keep the property as is. We've consulted legal staff on this just to make sure that we were handling proper protocol here. Since we do have a submitted subdivision plat and there are aspects of Iowa code where if there is not an official decision ultimately made by the city council, the plat could be deemed approved by default. It was legal counsel's recommendation that we go through the formal process on this to deny the subdivision plat as it does not comply with the zoning regulations. So as part of this, just some housekeeping, you'll need to have two motions on this one. The first motion would be to remove the item from the table. And then the second would be to either approve or deny the subdivision plat. With that, our recommendation would be to deny it since it does not meet the zoning standards for the A1 zoning district. And if there are any questions of the commission, I'd be happy to answer them.
Are there any comments or questions? All right, so we would entertain a motion.
Al Ferris, I move that we remove this item from the table and take it up.
This is Joe. I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 And then we have a second motion.
Yeah, the next motion would be then the action on the plat, and then this one we'll have to do a roll call vote on.
Okay. So we would entertain a motion for the second item of approving or denying.
Charlie, this is Joe. Normally, we don't make a negative motion, though. In your minutes, you recommend denial. Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, so with the resolution that council ultimately looks at is going to have to be either approving or denying the subdivision plat. So we have that on record. Normally, yeah, we do that, but just based off what they were telling us, council's going to have to take action to approve a resolution denying. So in that sense, I'm recommending that we just do it as denial now. If you want to make a motion to approve and then have ultimately everybody say no to that or yes to that, whatever that may be, that's fine as well.
So just to be clear, to make a motion to deny, you vote yes, which is to deny,
Yes.
correct? Okay. I will make a motion to deny the subdivision as submitted.
I'll second Bob Ormsby.
We would do roll call on that.
Joe Butler,
Yes.
Al Ferris,
Yes.
Becky Needles,
Yes.
Bob Ormsby,
Yes.
Sarah Ritchie,
Yes.
and Misty Soldwich.
Yes. Okay, so next in new business, item A, consider recommendation on request for approval of a final plat for Tree Line Plat 1 located in the 1,000, 1,100, and 1,200 blocks of North 7th Court, as well as 800 block of East Iowa Avenue. Charlie?
Yeah, the commission will recall back at their April meeting, you reviewed the preliminary plat for the subdivision, recommended approval, and the city council ultimately approved the preliminary plat, on May 4th of this year. Since that time, the developer has worked to get all aspects of this subdivision installed, road, utilities, and dirt work have all been performed. Typically, the last few subdivisions we have done, we have not been fully at the point where staff has inspected this. However, on this one, we have done our inspection. We've gone through punch list. We revised everything and staff has given their approval of all the improvements that are put in at this point. So with that, everything is completed and our recommendation is to move alternative 2, recommending with conditions, and that the condition be that all easement documents as well as attachments as required by section 354 of Iowa Code be reviewed by staff prior to recordation of the final plat.
All right, do we have any comments or questions on this? Is there anyone in the audience here for this agenda item? All right, so we would entertain a motion.
This is Joe. I'll make a motion that the City of Indianola Planning and Zoning Commission recommend final plat be approved with conditions that all easement documents as well as attachments as required by section 354.11 of the Iowa Code shall be reviewed by staff prior to recordation and then recorded with the final plat.
I'll second.
Courtney, we do roll call.
Al Ferris,
Yes.
Becky Needles,
Yes.
Bob Ormsby,
Yes.
Sarah Ritchie,
Yes.
Misty Soldwich,
Yes.
Joe Butler.
Yes.
All right, next is item B. Consider recommendation on request for approval of final plat for Grand Meadow Estate located within 2 miles of the city of Indianola. Charlie?
Yeah, this request is for a final plat of a 4-lot residential subdivision not located within the city of Indianola, but located within 2 miles of the city of Indianola. Our comprehensive plan that was recently adopted does show this as a planned agricultural area and is not inside a growth priority area for the city. Did note that a preliminary plat for this subdivision was not required as there is no infrastructure improvements associated with the subdivision. With that, there was also one public comment that we did receive that I included in the package from a resident who was out there. That letter dealt with some perceived damage that was done to a road out there as part of the development and grading of this subdivision. Again, as this subdivision isn't located within the city, we really don't have any jurisdictional control over what happens with those roads or who does any improvements to those based off the damage, but we did forward this on to both the zoning administrator for the county and I believe the city, or excuse me, the county engineer was also made aware of it. I did receive some communication from the county engineer this afternoon that they have met with the property owner and it sounds like they're working through some solutions to that. So just wanted to make sure that the commission was aware that they are working on rectifying any damage that was done out there. So with that, again, mainly as this subdivision is located outside the city and not in a growth priority area of the city, we are recommending approval of the subdivision plat.
All right, do we have any comments or questions? All right, so we would entertain a motion. Oh, do we have someone from the audience?
I'm Tim Williams and my wife Diane.
Hi.
We're the TD&K.
Okay,
Yeah,
if you'd
I
like
just wanted
to
to,
step up to the podium and give your
Okay.
name and address, that'd be great.
do you want our home address that we live at now or the address that we just
What's
got? for the
that?
night?
Yeah, well, you're already your home addresses.
My name is Tim Williams and my home address is 15152 Newbold Street, Indianola. The only comment I guess I had is I talked with David Carroll again and spoke with him about the damage that was perceived damage that was done on the road, and we're more than willing to work with the county on getting that brought to hopefully a satisfactory condition for the neighbor. But otherwise, that's all we really have.
Wonderful, thank you. Does anyone have any other comments or questions? So if not, we'd entertain a motion.
This is Becky Needles. I motion to approve the subdivision plat located at this outside the city of Indianola and outside of any planned growth area. And what the staff recommends, Planning and Zoning Commission. So I recommend that we approve the final plat.
Second that.
Alfarez seconded that. Would you roll call?
Becky Needles,
Yes.
Bob Ormsby,
Yes.
Sarah Ritchie,
Yes.
Misty Soldwich,
Yes.
Joe Butler,
Yes.
and Alfarez.
Yes.
All right. So the next item on the agenda is C, consider recommendation on request for alternative method of approval for a site plan for Cabin Coffee located at 910 East 2nd Avenue. Charlie?
Yeah, first of all, let me apologize. I know in the staff report, there was a few mentions of Crow's Nest RV Park and an RV park. When I created the staff report, I used kind of the guts of the previous one that we did and missed a few changes, and I do apologize for that. But this is for Cabin Coffee, just to confirm for everybody, located there at 910 East 2nd. So the commission may be aware of this, but last year this was one of the last two D&D dangerous and dilapidated building lots that the city had in our inventory, and we completed the sale of this to the applicant. The applicant does propose to build a cafe at this parcel. It would be approximately 2,000 square feet inside, would include a drive-through, and it does provide for 20 parking spaces. Site plan is currently under review. We did receive revisions to it today from all the points that were made on that from staff standpoint. However, one of those points that were made was that this building did not meet the design standards along the highway corridors. Ultimately, what those say is that 100% of the building wall surface that faces Highway 92 shall consist of a full natural brick, an exterior finish insulation system, also known as EFIS, culture stone and our masonry veneer with a minimum of 1 1/2 inches in thickness. Or a panelized fiber system with minimum thickness of 5/8 inch. And then those walls that adjoin a wall that fronts 92 shall consist of 30% of those materials noted above. Want to mainly point out the purpose of this, and this is taken directly from the ordinance, but the purpose of the architectural design standards is to recognize the importance of the highways to the city's image and future development, and to establish specific design guidelines for all development within the enforcement areas, and to avoid the construction of structures which have general appearance of farm machine sheds. So that being said, the south side of the proposed building is the side that fronts Highway 92 here and requires the 100%, while the east and west sides require 30%. The current site plan does propose that a little over 3 feet of Rosetta Stone be located on the south facade and the east side of the building, which is approximately 33% of the building wall. The west side includes stone only around the drive-through window. The remainder of the building is proposed to be a diamond coat siding trim with a color and texture that gives the building a wood look resembling a cabin, thus Cabin Coffee. As such, the east side does meet code while the south and west sides do not. The proposed elevations were included in the packet. And it is staff's opinion that the intent and purpose of the design standards are still met, and as such, we would recommend alternative 1, approving the alternative method of approval of the site plan as submitted. If there are any questions, I would be happy to entertain them, and I also know that the applicant's architect is on Zoom here as well too, if there's any questions for them.
Any questions or comments?
Yeah, Charlie, this is Al. Is the diamond coat siding, is that a new product or has that been around for a while?
I don't know. I would defer to the applicant on that one. I believe the diamond coat's just the brand name on that, but I think the architect would be able to answer that question much better than I would.
Good evening. This is Tom Trapp, Hartman Trapp Architecture. The diamond coat product is a product that's been around. It's very similar to like a hardy board plank. So it's a pre-finished product that has a 30-year paint finish warranty on it. So it's a very low maintenance and high quality product that the franchise ors have selected as their standard. So that this is something that is being installed throughout the country, actually. So that this is a very good and durable product.
Thank you.
Charlie, this is Bob. I just, maybe I was getting a little confused. The way it was written, I think, what was it? The south and east didn't meet the requirements. Is that right?
West.
Yes.
So,
No, excuse me, the south and the west sides do not, the east side does.
and so how did you move to approve this with it not meeting the requirements?
Because in my opinion, the intent of the code to, and I go back to that intent statement that I read there, for the purpose of the design standards ultimately was to create design guidelines for the development and to avoid the appearance of farm machine sheds within that area. So, and looking at it, the building that the applicant's proposing seems to be something that they generally have. And again, with the name of Cabin Coffee, they're trying to create that cabin-like feel with the building. And I just felt that the design that they have proposed did meet that intent. And again, still meets the intent of the code as well.
I believe we kind of accepted something similar with the pizza, what's the pizza place on the north side of town?
Pizza Ranch.
I know they did a similar aesthetic, you know, and I remember us going through that, and it was probably a similar deal where we felt it met the intent, but it was kind of it was a brand to them, I think, and when the materials they used, and we kind of, I guess, accepted that.
Yeah, and remember, and I don't think I need to remember the commission this, but ultimately that's just my recommendation. The commission is more than welcome to do whatever you see fit for the community.
Do we have any comments or questions from the audience?
I think the thing, maybe it's a bigger question and the material wise is the idea of using wood. It has not been an approved material. And are we setting a precedent by allowing it? I mean, and I know we've done it before, but I don't know if there's a negative thing to that or not. You know, is there, down the road, are we setting a precedent where we could have other buildings come in with residential wood siding and somebody's going to say, well, yeah, they use wood siding here or wood look siding. Is that the image that we want for the corridor?
This is Al. I guess from a personal point of view, not being an architect, I think it's an attractive building. And you drive up and down that street, there are some definitely unattractive buildings there. And this looks very attractive compared to some of those. I guess the way I read this, if this were really made out of wood instead of this kind of siding, it wouldn't be approved either, would it? Because
From staff standpoint,
yeah,
no.
According to the code, I'm surprised by that, I guess. I don't have a problem with that. I think it looks very attractive.
All right, would we entertain a motion?
This is Al. Yes, I would move to recommend alternative one, that is approving the alternative method for the site plan as submitted.
We have a second?
I'll second. This is Becky.
Any additional comments or questions before we do roll call?
I think, you know, we've allowed this before, which, you know, changes my perception. I think if we had not allowed this to be allowed in the past, I might have a different feel about it, but I don't know, we've set a precedent to allow this material. And yes, it's done in an attractive way. So I'm just throwing that on the record.
Yeah, I'll just make the comment that, I mean, this building benefits from the fact that it has been professionally designed. And I can see it being a potential issue with something that isn't done professionally, but using similar materials, that it would give a very different appearance. But perhaps that's just, you know, why we do this alternative method of approval, because we're looking at particularly how this was done. Is that appropriate, Charlie?
Yep. Exactly. I think that's why the code does outline the alternative method of approval, just so we're not, I won't say so we're so black and white and everything, but it just does give some relief to an applicant where a possible design still meets the intent of the code, but does not meet the actual language of the code.
Any other comments or questions before we do roll call, since we do have a first and a second? Courtney?
Sarah Ritchie,
She said in the chat, yes.
Misty Soldwich,
Yes.
Joe Butler,
Yes.
Al Ferris,
Yes.
Becky Needles,
Yes.
Bob Ormsby.
Yes.
Okay, motion approved. Item D, consider recommendation on request for a rezoning from C2 Highway Commercial Zoning District to R3 Mixed Residential Zoning District located at 506 and 508 West 2nd Avenue. Charlie?
Yeah, I'm sure the commission will recall on these particular lots, it was a little over 2 years ago that there was a rezoning from the previous zoning district, which was the R2, two-family zoning district, to the C2 district, and that was to facilitate a proposed development that was part of one of our, which is now our last D&D lot that remains in the city's inventory. So this is a total of 3 lots included in this. 2 of those lots are privately owned by JK Management LLC, and then the easternmost lot is still owned by the city of Indianola. Total amount of land in this is about 0.43 acres, and the applicant is proposing to change the zoning district to the R3 Mixed Residential Zoning District to facilitate 3 new duplexes, one of which will be located on each of the lots. The proposed rezoning would have the rezoning plus the proposed use would create a gross density of about 13.95 units per acre in this area. The comprehensive plan does identify this area as low density residential. We did note that there is sufficient sanitary sewer and water service, as this is a developed portion of the city. There is an 8-inch water line, which is on the north side of West 2nd Avenue, and there is an 8-inch sanitary sewer line that is located in the center of the road. West 2nd Avenue, which is also known as Highway 92, is a 3-lane hard surface road under the jurisdiction of the Iowa DOT. With that, again, this rezoning is being done as a proposed sale of the city's last D&D lot. You will note that there is the zoning district that surrounds this area is the R2 zoning district. The R3 zoning district was requested, and I think the applicant is here and will probably speak on this, just because of the side setbacks did offer a little bit more flexibility within the development with the R3. We did look at that, just knowing that the proposed use is duplexes on there, that we were comfortable knowing that the intent is still going to be an R2 type development. And if it were to ever be an R3 type development where you go above the duplexes, you're going to have to do a combination of the lots in a subdivision process. It would also trigger a site plan, which then requires some stormwater requirements. So Another thing I should note on that too is just because this is a duplex development, one on each lot, that does not trigger a site plan for this development, and thus none of the standards are required through a site plan will be required with this type of development. So if there are any questions on this, I'd be happy to answer them. But we do recommend alternative one, which is approving the rezoning request as submitted.
This is Al. Could you explain to me again why this wouldn't be R2? Isn't this a spot zoning request?
No, it's still a residential, and again, the proposed use is still going to be the duplexes. So yeah, we did look at this initially, and my thought was, again, if we do go to an R3 type development, there's going to be a whole nother, when I say R3 type development, that's anything above duplexes are single family. There'd be a whole nother layer of review on this. It would be similar to the Cabot Creek condos, where they'll have to do a site plan that is reviewed and approved by both the commission and council, and other aspects of that. But because duplexes are being proposed, and again, the R3 does allow for a lesser setback than the R2 zoning district, we were comfortable with going with an R3. Spot zoning, typically when I look at that, I see spot zoning as essentially what we have right now, and that's putting commercial in the middle of residential or industrial in the middle of residential, but you're still having a residential use within here. So it does, in my opinion, meet the intent.
Second question has to do with the width of the lots. Does it say that, are the lots 64 feet wide? I'm confused by this map. It says 32 feet wide and 51 feet deep. Is that what it will be after it's split, or?
And there's no proposal for split right now on it, but let me.
That's the size of the structures, isn't it? 32 feet wide.
Yeah, okay, so yeah.
And 51 feet deep.
The lot's 50.
This is Joe. One of the lots is only 45 feet wide.
Yeah, there's current parcels on there, so it is a little bit confusing on this, and you've got to pay attention to the actual size of the lots out there. So one of the lots I know, I think is, I'm pulling it up here again because I did look at this. Let me. So where the westernmost parcel, I believe, is 55 feet. The middle one is 45, and then the last one that the city owns is 50. In all technicality, the 3 lots that are there right now is shown on the subdivision plat for this are all 50 feet wide. Somewhere along the line, the property owner of lot 7 bought another 5 feet into lot 8. It's as easy as just getting those lot lines reestablished where the original subdivision plat is, and since this property owner is proposing to buy all 3 of them, that is something that can be easily achieved.
But under R3, isn't the minimum 70 feet?
Let me take a look at that here real quick, and that might be something that, yeah, we'll have to go through a variance process on if that is the case.
I think it says 2-family dwelling, 70 feet. I'm looking at page 1021 of the code.
It's 15 between the two.
Yep, give me 1 second here. Give me 1 second here, sorry. Yeah, for R3, single family 60, two family is 70. So yeah, I mean, and that's, I guess that's something to point out too. And I was just mainly looking at the rezoning on this, and I apologize, didn't get too far into that one, but that might be something that we'll have to work through and possibly go to the Board of Adjustment for a variance on the lot width on that if this is ultimately approved.
So really, if you stick with that 70 feet, there's really probably width there for two dwellings, not three.
And if we're to still stick to that 70 feet, but again, there are, and I can't speak to what the Board of Adjustment would say on this, but there are methods to get, less width required on those requirements through a variance process.
Any other comments or questions?
Charlie, this is Joe. It looks like there'd have to be a lot of variances because the multifamily dwelling, there's also area square footage requirements for 6,000 square feet for the first plus 1,200 for each. So even if they do a variance on the width, now we're only at 6,300 square feet per unit, which means we wouldn't be able to get the multifamily on either from the space perspective. I agree with Al, there'd actually be 2 units in those 3 lots and would require lot lines being moved rather than 3 in that area.
Actually, on the 2 family, so it's 8,400 square feet on that 4 lot area because we don't go by multifamily. We'd do the 2 family on that.
So that's even worse.
Mm-hmm.
Unless they buy all 3 lots and combine them into 2 and do a lot split, and then it gets closer to working. But the 3 doesn't work in that area.
Sorry, go ahead.
The 3 is what the issue is, trying to squeeze 3 just because there's 3 lots, but they're 3 small lots that don't meet the R3 requirements for multifamily.
Yeah, so and as part of this, I mean, with rezonings, obviously we have a proposed use on this, and I'll leave this up to the commission completely. But looking at, is the zoning district appropriate for this area, I think should be task number 1 in determining is R3 more appropriate than the current C2. And if it is, and if the commission does determine that, we can still move forward, in my opinion, with the rezoning. And then from staff standpoint and the applicant standpoint, we can work with them on either asking for variances on the lot width requirements, lot size requirements, and all of that stuff. Our work to get decreased from 2 to 3. I don't know if that would work or not based off the applicant on this one, but we'll have to work through that. So again, I'll leave that up to the commission on this, but I think, again, task 1 for the commission should be determining is the R3 district more appropriate than the existing C2 district.
This is Al again. At one time, there was a concerted effort by the city to get as much C2 zoning on Highway 92 and 65, 69 as possible because there was a lack of commercial property available on the highways. Is that still true, or is that not, is that passé?
I have not specifically heard that there's lack of commercial along the highways. I know we do have a few vacant lots out there and some open strip space that is available. We have a lot of commercial ground currently up in Summercrest Hills that is still available. So in my opinion, I don't think the city is lacking for commercial ground at all. We did note that through the comprehensive planning process as well when we looked at those districts, or excuse me, those classifications that we were putting on there. Comprehensive plan did show this as a residential area. There are aspects of Highway 92 that do have some commercial on them, but where you have more dense residential uses such as this area, it is really focusing on more of a residential use. So kind of a long-winded answer, I think, to that. But again, I'm not aware of there being a lack of commercial space on the highway, and there are a few vacant lots and, like I said, some shell space as well that's available throughout the community.
This is Becky. I have a question because isn't it true though, if some of these residential buildings along Highway 92 and 65, 69, if something were to happen to them, like they were a fire or something like that, they can't rebuild as a residential property?
Yeah, if they're currently zoned as commercial, that would be the case, but most of the ones in this area are zoned residential.
Okay.
You know, there are a few examples. There was a house that was recently rehabbed at Clinton and Jefferson, for example, there on the southeast corner. That particular house does have a commercial zoning district designation on it. So
Yeah.
if that house were to have a fire, it would have or would not be able to be rebuilt as a residential use.
And I think like what you were referring to, in an old comprehensive plan, there had been like corridors along the highways, both 92 and south of Highway 92, 65, 69, that had the plan to be C2. And it seemed like if there was commercial on a block already, then they would rezone that block. But there hasn't been anything for quite some time. But I know, I mean, that's what you're referring to.
This is Joe. I guess my thought is, I mean, we rezoned this to C2 when we were talking about taking all three properties and turning it into one project.
Yeah.
All three lots were going to be combined into one. So either leaving it as a commercial property and all three are developed as one project, or reverting it back to R2 makes the most sense to me. And when I look at the R2 versus R3 for a two-family dwelling, the lot size area is exactly the same at 8,400 square feet. The width is exactly the same at 70 feet. The only difference is the side yard setback of 10 feet in R2 or 8 feet in R3. So we're talking about 2 feet of side yard setback. And if we go to the correct density of that set that creates that 70-foot width, either one of those side yard setbacks would work with the project that is being proposed with the 32-foot width duplex on it. I mean, it's evident they're trying to make three work on these because there's three lots, but the lot sizes in our zoning ordinance don't allow for that. And so, I mean, if they want to do two duplexes and go back to R2, which is everything around there, I could support that. But the R3 to try to squeeze three and all the variances it would take to make that work doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah,
Amen.
Yeah, I like the idea of if R2, because I think it's a great project. I think that it would be a really positive improvement. But if it could be fit into the R2 zoning, I think that would make the most sense. Do we have comments from the audience?
I'm here representing the project, but I don't know that I have any
Okay,
comments.
no problem. Anyone else? So are we at the point where we would entertain a motion of some sort?
And I would also say, just based off the discussion I heard there too, that the commission does, I think, have the ability, you know, to still recommend the rezoning with another zoning district intact, if that is something that the commission ultimately wants to do. So just wanted to make sure that you were aware of that.
With the, Charlie, this is Joe, with the multiple property owners involved, I wouldn't feel comfortable making a motion on something different than what's proposed without having the property owners being in favor of that.
And I will say the property owners are not the ones that are requesting, it's the project here. The applicant is in the audience here too. So I don't know if you want to get up and speak to that at all, as possibly going to the R2 as opposed to the R3. Okay.
You wouldn't mind introducing
Well,
yourself?
of course, my name is Ben Carpenter. I live at 208 North B Street here in Indianola.
We were obviously planning on, or we're shooting to plan on building 3 duplexes on these lots. Right now, I'm not willing to, I think, make any extra effort to change to R2. Our purchase agreement was contingent on rezoning to R3, and if it's going to take additional variances, we may just let those lots sit for a while longer and not be part of that project. So we'd love to improve them. We'd love to push hard to make that happen, but we don't want to get in the middle of kind of a potential zoning issue with the city office.
And it sounds like, if I understand correctly, that if it was zoned to R3, that it doesn't immediately just become buildable for those items. It still would need to go through a variance process.
Yeah.
So it would be, there's going to be multiple steps regardless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, at least one more, as opposed to what we had previously discussed on this, is going through the variance route. So.
All right. Anything else?
I'm good.
Perfect. So can we entertain a motion? Any other comments or questions?
This is Sarah Ritchie. So in summary, it sounds like if we went with the alternative 3 would be what our recommendation would be.
Uh,
Recommends
Well, and again, then there's a
Rezoning.
fourth recommendation too as well, that
the request be
we can
denied.
remand it back to staff for any modifications or stuff like that. So again, if we're looking for more information here, or if we want to kind of sit down and hopefully determine kind of all the steps that are necessary and see if we can keep this on track, that's another option as well.
And I wonder if that's most appropriate, just if, with the current situation, if it's not approved as submitted, that there isn't an interest in moving forward, but there would still be other obstacles that could still prevent it from happening.
Charlie, this is Joe. Do we have time, if we were to send this back to staff, to still make a suggestion on this at next meeting's agenda? Does that
Are you
work?
talking with in line with the purchase agreement?
Well, I mean, if I made a motion to instruct to send it back to staff to meet with applicant to see if R2 zoning is feasible before we actually make a motion to send it on to council. That's what I would feel most comfortable with.
So you're talking more of a conditional approval on that?
or option 4, actually, really, isn't it, Joe?
Yes, it would be option 4, alternative 4. That's correct.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we can make that work, definitely. We'll just have to work with the applicant on next steps on that.
But we have enough time based on our ordinance to do that without it being a automatic.
Yes,
send to the
yes,
council.
yes.
That's what I would feel most comfortable with. I think with all the variances that would have to come into play, those need to be vetted and discussed, and the feasibility is there before we go through with the rezoning based on the conversation tonight.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we remand the zoning request back to the applicant and staff for further review and direct the staff to place this item on the future planning and zoning agenda, hopefully next month.
This is Joe. I'll second that.
Any comments or questions before roll call? Courtney?
Misty Soldwish,
Yes.
Joe Butler,
Yes.
Al Ferris,
Yes,
Becky Needles,
Yes.
Bob Ormsby,
Yes,
and Sarah Ritchie.
Yes.
All right. So item 8 is comments. Do commission members have any comments? 8B is staff.
Yeah, I just entertain any questions that you may have on the various reports that we submitted. Also want to thank, I know there was a few commission members who we did meet, and maybe this was prior to the last meeting, I don't know, but on the code update process. We've started that with our steering committee. So we're starting that code update process. I know that was something that we promised in the work program, and we're well underway on that process. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
All right. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
A motion to adjourn. This is Becky.
Bob Ormsby, I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
All right, thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Have a good night.
everybody.